I Want to Jump Like Dee Dee, with me, Giles Sibbald, is the music podcast that does music a bit differently. I'm talking to some incredible musicians, DJs and producers about how they use an experimental mindset to fuel their own creativity, pursue new challenges, overcome fears, bounce back from mistakes.
Just came across Emily MC just a few months ago, and it was actually a retweet from Chuck D. And really, you know, when Chuck D does that, I mean, you sort of sit up and take notice. So I checked out her music, and you know, kind of blown away. Doesn't even cover it. For me, it's really that sort of golden age of hip hop, old school beats and flow, quintessential New York for me. I'm thinking, you know, MC Light, Roxanne Shante, Eric B. and Rakim, and of course PE themselves, but all of it sort of taken forward to now. I mean, she really is the business for me. So I'm really delighted that Emily MC is on the show with us. Welcome, and thanks so much for coming on.
Peace and positives. Hey. Thanks for having me. Loving the background today.
Absolutely.
Today. Yeah.
Oh, good. And you got your Prince t-shirt on.
Oh,
as well.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So, I mean, you know, when I first heard your music, I was just sort of taken sort of right back. You know, for me, those days of the sort of late 80s, you know, it just really sort of hit that sort of perfect spot for me. That kind of golden age is like my favorite one. That and sort of more the sort of industrial hip hop. Those are the two genres, if you want to call them genres, that or kind of periods that I sort of really love. And I mean that in a you know, that sort of take back to the late 80s in a really, you know, sort of totally respectful way, because for me those were the days of, you know, really like exceptional rappers and musicians who broke so much ground then, you know. They really did. So that's just a massive positive for me.
Thank you very, very much. Yes. What a time! What an era!
Yeah. So what's happening at the moment then? Tell me what's going on. At the moment,
it's known now as National Women's Month.
Yep.
Here at least, or I believe we had International Women's Day the other day.
Yeah.
So there's March has kind of become like a hot month for women in hip hop, which is dope. Growing up in my performance company, it was founded by Black Panthers and Black arts activists. The name of the group was called Impact Repertory Theater. And February, it was a leadership training and performing arts group, but it was also a fully functioning performance company that we didn't call it tour, but once I was out of it, I was like, yeah, we toured. We did touring shows, at least 50 shows a year.
Yeah.
Rehearsals every Saturday, a 7-hour day of rehearsing and workshops and community service and self-development, this whole thing. But I say that to say that February for us was the hot month, especially because of the history of our founders. And of course, everybody wants to have, I'm saying it with a smile because these are things, there's things you don't realize when you're a child, even when you're doing mature things as a child. So we were, you know, performing at political events, at community events, at all these things. And we, you know, there were many times where we performed for politicians that I'm sure if we had really been explained to, like, who and what and why we were performing for them, I might have been like, I don't know if I want to perform for this person. But back then it was just like, hey, and then they're all like, you know, this is the future. Everybody loves to have the kids in the press shots, you know, and be able to say, like, you know, the young people are here and that energy.
What sort of age were you doing that at? What?
Oh man, I joined that company at 12 years old.
Right. Okay.
Yes, and I was there a total of 13 years, which is crazy.
Wow. So that must have had, like, that sounds like that's had a massive impact on, you know, kind of like, you know, in terms of sort of you know, your influences. Obviously, you know, we could talk about a little bit when you're a little bit younger, but since we're talking about that, that must have had a big impact on you and how you've, you know, kind of grown.
Yeah, very huge. I was performing before that. I was in a dance company in Harlem, Millennium Dance, excuse me, with Denise Perry. I played sports recreationally. I did gymnastics for a little bit. I was always had a notebook. So I was dibbling and dabbling before that. And I can definitely trace roots. But joining that company was a very stark stake in the ground. And it was also because you don't just come in and join and start performing. You audition, and then once you pass the audition, you get placed in a boot camp. And you're in a boot camp for at least 6 weeks.
Wow. And
you're learning all the material, but you're also learning codes of conduct, you know, Black Panthers. You're also learning codes of conduct. You're also learning the mission statement and the acronym of the company. And mind you, every time we did a show, we are reciting the acronym: impact, repertoire, impact, inspiration, motivation, preparation, activism, commitment, teamwork. We are youth activists who view the creative arts and leadership training as a way to develop ourselves and change the world in a positive way. We believe that we must be the message that we bring through hard work, focus, discipline, unity, and the principles of SOS, safe space, outstanding effort, and service to our family, friends, and community. Wow. And we said that at every show.
Wow.
Every show, every rehearsal. We had these little things. We played theater games. We had global awareness workshops, public speaking, a tiny bit of media training, tiny bit, because oftentimes we were called youth ambassadors and we had to speak on behalf of the company. Many of us I was one of the people who became junior staff, started running some workshops, eventually started helping with programming, but we also, like, again, Black Panthers, we served lunch because it was 7 hours we're there. So we had a free lunch. So we're setting up lunch. If we're getting stuff from the supermarket, we're helping the people who go to the supermarket. We're getting the plates out. We're helping serve. We're helping clean up, break down, set up. Eventually I became the first company captain, which was awesome. They were like, yeah, we don't have a title for this. What about company captain? But it's you, whatever it is, it's you. And I was like, oh man, which is awesome. But then it was like firm finger point for everything. But that has been a huge shaper of my life. That program saved my life because I had a lot of burdens as a child. And I had a very heavy, I know most people have a hard transition through early, like teenage, high school. Like I know a lot of people go through like dark periods. I had a very dark period. My family was torn apart. My parents divorced, and my mother moved 5 million places before she left New York. And then it felt like I'm an only child. So I felt like it wasn't them who got divorced. We all got divorced. And I was on my own now. And so I was having a hard time. And there's so many stories, but that program was my air every Saturday. I got so into it because it was the art, it was the political education, it was seeing these grown and mature and accomplished and professional Black and brown people doing different things in the world, doing film and production and literature and stuff right in front of me. And then also, obviously having the family suddenly, because you do become a family of all these young people and all these different ages, because it was like, youngest was maybe 9, oldest in 20s and upper 20s, and then the grown staff and the executive staff who are 30, 40, almost 60. So you get a intergenerational environment. and then performing 50 shows a year, of all different types of audiences, we never really knew where we were going to do the show. So I mean, we did most of the time, but sometimes you just get in the van or we get in the train and you go and we have our huddle and we set things and you go and perform. But having to perform in front of fresh, different audiences of all different types of people and all different types of environments, it's that in itself is a medium that is very, very interesting. In fact, when I left the program, I had a huge withdrawal from suddenly, I didn't realize it, but 50 to 100 shows a year, plus week rehearsals, plus we're all in school. Some of us are working and in school. You're doing that. Years go by, 10 years of that, and then suddenly no shows. So it's like, not only am I not getting that exercise, but I'm not getting that release, and I'm not getting that connection with people. And I mean,
it sounds like aside from the kind of like creative skills, the performing sort of skills. I mean, it's basically like you said, you mentioned intergenerational, kind of community, but all that sort of community building, and then skills of organizing and kind of being part of that group. It's almost like a community in its own right, isn't it? That's really what it sounds like. And as a 12-year-old, that must be hugely impactful on you.
Oh yeah, totally. And I was just wide-eyed. I soaked so much in, and yeah, again, going from an only child to being surrounded by people.
How do you remember adapting to that? Going from being an only child, and then suddenly you're in this kind of huge community. How did you adapt to that?
A lot of observation and a lot of experimentation and I guess faith. I felt like this is something big. Yeah. This is something bigger than anything I've ever known. And I had no idea that I would end up performing it at the United Nations, at arenas, at a maximum security prison.
Wow.
At the Oscar, we went to the Academy Awards. We were nominated for Best Original Song. I had no idea that I was going to end up there, but I felt something sparked my soul and made me feel myself again. And that told me, like, stick with this for a while, like just ride it out. And then I also was just so big, even though it was only once a week, it's like I became so wrapped up in that idea, this big idea, that it was like I was too busy to be wrapped up in anxiety, or my depression almost.
Were you a confident kid?
No, not really. I've been told I'm a brave person. I've always been taken aback at that. I can definitely understand why people say that and what they mean. But I've always felt that if there are certain things, if I never do certain things, if I never take the initiative to do certain things, then they won't get done. I'll never move. Nothing will ever change. And I was a very shy child. I was very quiet. I was to myself a lot. And obviously, when you're in the house by yourself, you get used to that. And early 90s.
I was an only child as well. Yeah, so I kind of empathize. Yeah, I mean, I was shy as well. You know, that was my. I'm still, you know, I'm an introvert. You know, there's some situations I'd rather not be in. You know, maybe anxious, and I'd rather not be here. So I totally hear what you're saying. And sometimes, you know, you're on your own, and you learn to get comfortable with your own company and. You know, being so in a way it does sort of give you confidence, but there's always that inherent sort of shyness, isn't there? That's the
yes thing. Like there's some things that I did that, you know, if you told another person, well, shy people don't do things like that. But it was like, but yeah, it's like I had, and that I think that also goes back to the question you had about fear. I seen that pop up a lot. It's like, I know I can feel the fear. I can feel the fear. I can feel the anxiety. I can feel that's a bit of a risk because X, Y, Z. It could go like this, but it could go like this, or you know, you could hurt yourself. Somebody could hurt you, or you know, don't be too open. Don't be too, you know, I can feel that. But also it's like, yeah, but this idea or this thing or learning this dance, having this dance in my body, or I wanted to play football. I just watched the sport and it was something I wanted to do. I felt like, wow, the act of tackling someone looks incredible. Like it looks very powerful. I want to know how that feels. I want to know how that feels. Yeah. So I'm going to go to a football practice and I'm going to join the team and I'm going to tackle someone. Yeah. Shy people don't do that. Non-confident people don't do stuff like that. But it was like, yeah, but I want to know how that feels. And it's possible I can do that. I can figure out how to do that. And it's like, I feel it's that old feel the fear and do it anyway thing. It's like, I've done that so many times. And I guess that also becomes a habit because you do it so many times. And the more you face the fear, it's like the less it was a giant and it just keeps shrinking. Yeah. But it's like, when I think about how many fears I've faced, and done things anyway, or been quote unquote brave and pushed through something because I was so curious or so believing in the value of what was on the other side. It makes me realize that so the fear itself is not really real then. Yeah. And it's an illusion then. Yeah. So then it becomes, so do I really need to be spending my time and my energy fighting the face the fear thing? Yeah. Instead of like just going to, you know, why go through the roller coaster? So that happens. I don't think people talk enough about the mental process of certain things with anxiety and depression, but it's like, you do get to a place where you realize how much time it actually takes you and how much energy it actually takes you to process certain situations and people and emotions. And you get to thinking, wow, I spent X amount of time, energy, and attention to get through that, just to get to that idea, result, or detail. I have so many ideas, results, and details I want to get to. I think I can cut that time at least in half to start, so that I can get more out of life, because you realize you're actually taking life away from yourself. Yeah. So it becomes a thing where, you realize that the fear is not something real at all, actually, and it's really just your mind doing something else, or a pre-existing belief that you've held on to, or a conditioning that you've held on to and became a habit. And you can totally unlearn that. Unlearning is one of my biggest like evolutionary tools. Unlearning.
Absolutely.
Unlearning.
I think you're totally right with that. I think this is really, really important what you're talking about. I mean, when I started this podcast, I had to be sort of pushed into it. I was like, oh, no, who would want to listen to me? Who's going to want to? I'm going to ask some people, and they're going to say no.
And there's a million podcasts. Everybody's doing it.
And it's like, even people telling you, yeah, this is a really good idea. It's a kind of subject that's really, sort of interesting. It's something that's different. That self-doubt and almost like sort of the fear of, putting yourself out there, is always there. And it's funny. It never leaves. It never goes away. Each episode, I'm thinking, okay, the nerves start, and I'm thinking, oh my god, right. So what if I say this, or what if I do? Oh, it's like, then it's like, and I'm like, just do it. Just go and do it. And it's something. I think it's that sort of protective mechanism, isn't it? That primitive
fight or flight. Yeah. We do have that built in, but then you also start understanding. The brain is so amazing. So I think if we were taught more about how our brains are made scientifically and how the mind works, like on a daily basis, I think if we were taught more of that, it's the old thing. If we were more in charge of ourselves.
Totally agree.
Would we be spending the money on the things we send? Would we be, So there's that. But oh man, train of thought. Come back.
Yeah, no. Sometimes you're on with something and then distracted. Get back to it. No, I think you're right. I think those. It sounds like with those those sort of fears that you're talking about. You want to go and feel how it was to go and make a tackle playing sort of football, and it's almost like that kind of curiosity or need to know. I need to kind of educate myself how it feels is superior. That wins over the the fear of not doing it.
Just hearing you say that got me excited again. Man. And I'm a little girl. Little girls have no business watching grown men in the NFL and thinking, I would love to tackle a grown human being at top speed and wrestle him to the ground. Like that's what? But it was like, well, somebody had the idea of humans, being a human chessboard and physically connecting in such a way to stop each other or whatever have you. Somebody had the idea, and it looks like it's going really well. But obviously with measurements and stuff, there's different ways in experiencing that. And it tapped for me also into, I had this thing as a small child. I was always very curious about lifting things and things being heavy and how heavy is that? I bet I can lift it, and let me carry the bags, and let me hold that, let me lift it. And I had this time, she never knew this, but so there was it was me and my mother at home alone. We were all still like a family, and there was I was super bored. I was so bored, and bored is a bad word. That's one of the things in my life. Bored is a bad word. I have mastered the art of never being bored. Never be bored. It's just a horrible place to be. But I was so bored and so restless, and she was cooking and doing stuff in the kitchen, and she was just annoyed, like, go do something. And so you can't go outside, but you need to just go do something. And I was like, man, this sucks. And I went into a room, and there was this like old, late 80s computer. And for people who don't know, those computers back then were huge and bulky. Yeah, man. Oh my gosh. So there was this huge computer that we had, this huge old computer, and it was sitting on a chair. But it was sitting on this rolly chair, the swivel chair. I used to use that chair. I would flip it over and pretend I was a bus driver and like use the bottom like that. And then I would sit in it and spin and pretend I was like on a rocket ship and doing the control rock. I just went to town with this chair. But for some reason, the huge computer was in the chair. And I was like, whoa, this got to get rid of the computer somehow. And something was like, I bet I could lift a computer and put it down.
Yeah.
Because I got to get to the chair. And if I ask her to do it, she's probably going to say no, because she's probably going to think it's too heavy for her, or she's just not going to want to do it. Or she's going to say, like, don't mess with the computer or something. So I was like, it's got to be me. I've got to do it. I've got to get to the chair. And besides, I bet I could lift this. So first I did the test. I sized it up first. I sized it up and made sure she was, real busy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Made sure she was not anywhere close. And then I wrapped my arms around the first piece to just get a test. And I was like, oh, okay, this is pretty heavy. Okay. And mind you, I might be like 6'7". I'm small. So I finally like, okay, if I lift with my legs in a big squat and I move it, I figured out how I was going to do it. I wrapped my arms around it and I lifted it maybe a couple centimeters and tiptoed back. And I remember like going down very, very slowly, like as slowly as I could, because I was like, whoa, this is heavy and she's gonna hear it if I drop it. So we have to be super. And my mother didn't play, like we got beatings back then. So that was not gonna be me. That was not gonna be me. I had to pull this off very, very flawlessly. And I knew that. And I set it down so gently and I made it. And maybe when I had like about an inch left, I leaned my body one way so at least the corner could hit the floor, and then I let the floor help me, and I lifted that computer and I got it down, and I was like, oh, all right. And then like a child, I just jumped into the chair and was like, wee, oh man. And years later I was like, yo, I lifted that computer, that's crazy. But then my mom hears me wee on the chair, and she comes into the room from the kitchen and she sees me playing in the chair and she sees the computer on the floor and she goes, what is that doing there? And I was like, I lifted it so I could get to the chair. See, I'm in the chair. Yeah, I'm having fun. Yeah, wee. And she's like, how did the computer get there? And I was like, I lifted it really, really carefully, and I put it down really, really carefully. How else could it have gotten there? Like, of course, I lifted it. I'm strong, mommy. And she was like, you did not lift that computer. And I was like, what do you mean? I lifted the computer. She's like, you did not lift that computer. There's no way.
Wow.
And I bet you broke it. You must have broke it. I'm going to tell your father. And she got so bad. She was so bad. And I was just sitting there like looking around at the studio audience, like, yo, are y'all seeing? She never believed that I actually lifted that computer. So long story short, the football thing tapped into that, like, I'm strong. People don't know, but I'm actually really strong. I don't know why. I just am. And I think I should use that for something.
Well, it's you know, if the music industry doesn't work out, and I'm sure it will do, then there's a kind of career in weightlifting
I watched the Olympics the past year too, and I was like, oh my God, they got a weightlifting thing.
I mean, you've kind of got the courage to go for it. You got the sort of self-belief to do it. Oh yeah,
weightlifting, the shot put things, and all of that. Like, totally into it.
I liked what you were saying earlier about about a sort of unlearning, and the idea of you kind of going and tackling a big, like 20 stone, kind of, footballer. The idea that you can sort of lift that computer weight. It's almost like I like that idea of unlearning things like that. These are kind of like rules that were taught, and it's like, well, but the idea that you have of questioning those rules, like,
yeah,
why should that be?
What happens when you
I
remove
think you
the
take that through life.
Yes.
I think that's like a really powerful thing to have.
Yes. What happens when you remove the question of if you can do it? Like,
yeah.
What if it's the connection of there's something inside you. Again, I don't know why I was strong. Like, I thought, because I started noticing that other people weren't into this strength thing the way I thought about it. I mean, I didn't think about it a lot, but I noticed it, and it would come out in these ways, and I would just have these urges to exercise it. And that's there for a reason, and you don't even have to dwell on the reason. But if the urge is there, if there's a desire there, it has probably been put inside you for some reason or purpose. And it may not be like this grandiose, like humanity will be saved, and like it may not even be all that. It may just be for you to have a certain experience that only you can have, or a certain set of interactions that only you can have with a certain group or style or location or tribe of other people. And that's a trait of your uniqueness, and absolutely take that through life. Absolutely.
I'm also really interested in some of the other things that you've been doing. So you sort of majored in political science.
Yes.
You've also had from if I understand correctly, like a non-profit organization that you've sort of set up, and you've obviously got your incredible music. And you live in Harlem, which is obviously like hugely sort of must be hugely influential in terms of the different influences that are there. So your environment is it must just kind of spark this kind of creativity in you. I mean, it's really must be really fascinating being there.
Yeah, fascinating. I understand why people say New York is overwhelming and overpriced, and I don't know why people live there. I totally understand. You're right. We shouldn't live here. It's way too much. It's way too much. At the same time, this is where I grew up, so my breeding was different, and so my habitat, like my growth in this habitat, became adjusted to it. And
do you think your environment has really sort of influenced you in what you've chosen to do and how you've chosen to do things?
Absolutely. I heard Andre 3000, or maybe it was Big Boy, but they were talking about when hip hop started getting more regional, and people were asking like, oh, now there's like a Southern hip hop, like there's a sound from the South, and now there's like a Midwest thing going on. And what do you think about that? And they were like, the beauty of this is discovering all these new sounds from these places. But like when you actually take time to listen to these different sounds, you understand not just more about their music, but more about their people and where they're from. Because, and they were like, now that we're outcasts and we're traveling and doing shows and stuff, and we're a big deal, we've been to New York a lot now, and being there, we can totally understand why their music sounds the way it sounds. And I know when I went to I lived in California for 6 months, and maybe a little more than that, but I remember going there, and that was a huge shift gear from New York, like way of life, day in, day out, weather, everything, just everything. And I remember thinking like, wow, I totally get why Snoop raps the way he raps, and like why people are so, because it's like The things we stress about in New York, even the way everybody was like, yo, why are you talking so fast? Why are you walking so fast? Where are you rushing? Like, and I was like, I don't walk fast. I just, I walk with a purpose. It's things to do, gotta get it. And they're like, get what? Let's relax, like breathe. Like, you want to have a barbecue this weekend? Like, let's break out the grill on a Tuesday. Let's break out the grill. And I was like, whoa. So yeah, like New York, especially because your class experience definitely makes a difference. So New York on a budget, riding the trains, riding the buses, walking, maybe riding the bikes all over the city, the parks maybe being our only place of like true nature, really, and riversides, the buildings, the skyscrapers, but also like the residential buildings and the way people are stacked on top of each other. It definitely affects a feeling, a stick and move kind of feeling. And we talked briefly when we met about the magazine about when my family first came from Uganda. And I was saying like, well, it was the golden age of hip hop. So of course that was affecting the air and what I saw, but at the same time, it's New York. So there's all types of music going on. But it's funny because like I said, hip hop wasn't played in my house, but it was everywhere because not only was it being played in somebody else's house or down the street or coming out of cars, but everywhere it was playing because of the way the buildings are so close and the blocks are so close, the sounds are bouncing off the buildings and bouncing off of things. So you're getting a feedback loop of different things constantly. And yeah, I remember first starting to make tracks and I had this really busy, the way I was hearing things, I still do this too. Like I patch things together to like kind of make the sound I hear. And a lot of what I was hearing was like, it's coming out of me sonically, the way my brain was receiving it growing up in the habitat. So yeah, New York has definitely affected me in that way. And also in being multi-talented, I think it's like you learn to have a big toolbox because you need that. Especially in the city, you have to learn, especially once you get out of the stage where your parents are walking with you everywhere. I mean, a lot of us break out of that really early. We're taking ourselves to school really, really young, and riding the trains really, really young. So you probably get told certain things about like how to walk down the street, what to look at, what not to look at, make your eye contact like this, yada, yada, yada. So I think, you learn to have a big toolbox. And I think creatively, especially like I said, being a only child who's just, however I cannot be bored, that's what needs to happen, is like, I became so addicted to creative expression that however I could get it, I was interested. And I legitimately stuck with not just one or two things, but like 5, 6, 7 things.
It sounds like I think one of the sort of skills, if you want to call it that, I don't know if it is a skill, characteristic that I think is really important is adaptability, being able to adapt to different situations that you're perhaps thrown into, what you're describing there, where you have to adapt and go to school on your own from sort of quite early age. You have to learn how to conduct yourself, how to behave, how to, in different sort of situations, and especially in a very, kind of dynamic sort of environment that, that you're in. It actually sort of gives you something very useful, for work, for deciding who you want to be, how your identity sort of changes.
Yeah.
I think that, I think that, that adaptability, I think is I think it's an important thing to have, especially as the world is shifting so quickly as well. Even with in the music industry, just technology itself is sort of changing so quickly as well.
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing. I think it's so huge. Another thing that we should have an adaptability class in school. Totally. I
think the other thing in schools as well that I think should be taught from a really young age, is things around emotional intelligence, so that
yes,
absolutely.
And I saw that in your question list.
Yeah, kind of like empathy. I mean, these guys, I remember talking to she is a pediatrician she's in Nebraska, I think. And she sort of specializes in kind of skills that for kids, and she's a big
that's fine.
Kind of supporter of these sort of things being taught, but basically
Absolutely.
like as soon as you can.
Yes.
The
kind of things make me want to open my own
like
school, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because I see I saw it. That's the thing. When I was a child, I knew it wasn't right. I just knew it wasn't right. I was like, I see what y'all are doing with this thing, with the school thing, but nah, it's not. This is not it. This is not it. And I was, I remember quickly, I'll just tell you. So third grade, I think it was in the fourth grade bridge. They told me, I didn't know that they told me after, but so they came to my parents. Full disclosure, I did go to private Catholic school.
Yep.
For first and second grade. So yeah, I definitely agree that there is a difference in the public and private experience. Yeah. Totally agree. Yeah. So I came into, after that, it was all public school for me and through high school. But I did come into the public system with a certain quality of, because of the private education prior to that.
Yeah.
But third, fourth grade rolls around and they're telling, they told my parents that, basically like she should skip a grade. Like she's ready to go. She's advanced. She should go. And my parents decided to not skip me. No one did it. And they were like, she should skip, or you should put her in like a gifted school, like those programs.
Yeah.
Called gifted child, whatever, which is like flattered.
Me?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, me. Oh, thank you.
I'll have some of that.
I was a little bit. I knew I was strong, but gifted. Oh, okay. Working with some gas here. Good genes, mommy. Good genes, daddy. But they were like, no. And I don't know also if it was, because they're not, and not to say that it's because they're from there, but I don't know if it's maybe because we were so new to the country and they come from Uganda and there's certain thing. And my mother's the oldest of 11. And right. My father is the middle child of 10.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a totally different experience.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. I mean, it's opposite ends, that, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. They were like, no. And in a lot of ways, I'm thankful they did that, because with the chain of events that happened, I would have never met Impact, the group I was talking about that I was in for 13 years, if I had, because I would have had to go to a whole new school and everything like that. So I might not have, things would have been drastically different. But one negative, which became a blessing of that decision to not skip me, was that I became very bored in school every single day.
Right.
All the work was so easy for me. I would finish it so quickly, or I got to a point where the work would come, homework would come, and I would literally read it, what they wanted me to do. And I would like roll my eyes and just take a deep breath because I could see right through it. And I told my parents, I said, I think I told them, but I told them that I felt like it was busy work. I felt like they were just pacifying me. And I felt like I was a funny child, but something in me said, they're hiding the real knowledge from you. They don't want you to know something. So this is what you got to get. And I don't know where the real knowledge is, but it's not here. And you need to figure out where it is. And they're not going to tell you. So I also became kind of resentful at the school system and at the teachers, because I felt like they were hiding real knowledge. And something got into my brain that college was where the real knowledge was. Because I would always see college students and they just had a different kind of posture, and the colleges had their own libraries. And, you know, when you go in the regular library and you research stuff, sometimes the books come up and they're only in these college libraries. So I was like, that's where the real knowledge must be. It's in the colleges. I got to get to college. I was in 4th grade. So I was like, man, I don't know how I'm going to skip all these grades, but I just got to get to college. And I did. And I ended up dropping out of high school before I even went to college. Other story. But with the emotional intelligence thing, though, I actually have that on my resume. And like when I apply to applications in the skills section, emotional intelligence is one of the things I put. And I have finally come, because I put it to the side for so long. I have a big heart. And to all the people out there who are like, you know, it's been made very cool to be cold. I mean, now we have more conversations about mental health and wellness, which is great. But for a long time, and even now, it's so cool to be cold. Don't care. Don't show your feelings. Love will get you killed. Relationships suck. Marriages end. Like friends, people are disloyal. People don't care. It's a cold world. Bundle up. That's it. Go for yours. You know, step on who you got to step on, and don't look back, because nobody cares about stepping on you, kind of thing. But I've always had like a big heart, always. And I was very, very sensitive growing up, super sensitive. And I got to a place where I began to resent the fact of these things. And to see them, as the world was teaching me, to see them as liabilities. And niceness. I have a good friend who wrote a book called Dear Nice Girl, and briefly touches on this topic of niceness, especially for girls. You're taught to be nice, a nice girl, be a good girl, and what that means, you know, and the pros and cons of quote unquote self-sacrificing and stuff like that. But especially after reading her book, I really did begin examining, you know, what this means. And like I talked about, being an enthusiastic person, what that means, what that's about, where it comes from, and what the good is in that. And I started seeing that, like, you know, I read people the same way I had the strength thing. I read people really well. I meet people and I get these senses and impulses of things that they probably went through. And when they start speaking to me, I really listen to them. And I start thinking about how they probably grew up and what kinds of experiences they probably had. And I'm so great at speaking to strangers. Like anybody.
Absolutely.
On the street, I can just have a very quality, meaningful conversation with anybody, because people are inherently layered and have their own, you know, set of journey and their own human experience. And it's having a big heart and having sensitivity and having empathy and probably being an immigrant, a child immigrant, having the awareness of like, it's a big world that maybe other people didn't have, of like, I come from a place that's so rural and so locally tight, and there's tribes and clans and families where it's 10 kids and 10 kids, and you know, and now I'm in New York City, and my father was in Italy before he came to New York. So it's a big world, and there's so many different people. But I began to see that my ability to read people and places and things and read, I call it, I say I'm detail and people conscious.
Yeah.
And I read rooms really well, and emotional intelligence. I had to learn that my heart is an asset and that my sensitivity is a superpower. It can be a superpower.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you there. I mean, what you've spoken about there is just sort of so important for for you, and just kind of collectively how we deal with people. If everybody just has their own sort of piece of or improves their own sort of emotional intelligence, and whatever sort of part of that it may be, whether it's your kind of self-awareness, being aware of yourself and how you come across to other people, as well as the empathy of understanding that people might have had a different experience to you, and being open to listening to that and trying to sort of understand. I mean, that that sort of stuff is, we can start to solve some of the some of the problems.
It improves your relationship with yourself, first of all.
Absolutely, yeah, totally right.
Which is the most important thing. Even if you want to devote your life to healing the world, you have to heal you first. And
absolutely,
then your ability to have quality and meaningful relationships with people, whether they be casual or intimate. Yes, absolutely.
I think you're totally right. That it starts with that kind of like almost sort of self-love. Really sort of being comfortable with yourself, loving yourself. Then once you have that, and I think it's easy to think that that's a selfish approach to take, isn't it? To care about yourself first. You think, I've got to care about. I mean, my mum, sort of devoted her whole life pretty much to putting others in front of herself.
Yeah.
She's from a different generation.
I'm about to say, and
she's nearly 90 now.
Yeah.
But her whole thing when she was born on a farm, and her whole thing was about helping other people. She thought that was what she was put on this planet for. To help other people, whatever they were kind of going through at the expense, and it was at the expense of herself.
Yes. Yes.
And you kind of see how that can end up. It's not
right.
pretty at the end,
Right. Your process.
You have to start with yourself.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I'm really grateful to have that awareness now. And just on the note, I know we're running short on time, but just on the note of generational thinking as well, I did notice a lot of your questions near the bottom of your list had to do with almost like age consciousness, and like as you're getting older in the world.
Yeah. I guess that's sort of coming from me as somebody who's like getting older. Oh God, it's approaching. No, I think it is important. That we learn from each other. Sort of age is just one. Is just one kind of construct that we have in this world. It could be any sort of number of things.
Construct. Absolutely.
Where we could start learning. I was going to say actually just on what we were talking about. I think that the great thing that I think that you have is that with having that sort of just going back to that self-awareness is the messages that you can
communicate through your creativity, whether it's sort of through your music, so sonically, but also sort of visually as well, with the, you know, kind of like the, you know, the videography that sort of creativity that you do. I think that can be hugely powerful. But, yeah.
Thank you. That's part of my master plan. Absolutely.
Yeah, fabulous.
Brain. Yeah. I'm hypnotizing everyone. Yeah. You know what's so crazy? They actually came back. I gave it one shot. I was like, you know what? I'll give it one episode, maybe two. They put Pinky in the Brain back out. And I'm sorry to say I couldn't stomach it past the first episode. But what they did, so they spent most of the episode, they broke them back out of the vault after these 20 years or so. Yeah. And they're like, whoa, it's a whole new world kind of thing. And they're like, so they get to the Pinky in the Brain section. And of course, Brain, he still wants to take over the world.
Of course.
Still, nothing changes with him. It's one lane, one gear. And he's like, how are we going to take over this new world? What are they doing? What's important to people now? And Pinky is to his left on a cell phone watching like kitten videos or whatever.
Yeah.
Like laughing his head off. And it's like these 9 seconds. He's like, oh my God, look at the kitty brain. Look at the kitty brain. Oh, this is so funny. I want to watch it again and again and again. Oh man, I wish I could just keep it with me so I could watch it all day. And Brain is like, Pinky, that's it. That's how we're going to take over the world. And long story short, he basically figures out that everybody's on social media. And what he'll do is create a program in which these special rays are going to come out of this one post that he films Pinky doing. And as soon as people watch it, these rays are going to come through their eyes and into their brains, and they're going to be programmed to do whatever Brain wants them to do. Yeah, and it's going to go viral. So the whole world is going to fall into this thing. And I was like, man, y'all. And this is how they came back after 25 years or whatever on episode 1. It was so much going on. And I was like, oh my God, but that's how, and not to put it in a very negative, sick, like, you know, but in the ways of mind science and construction and positive thinking and betterment and uplifting energy, high frequency energy. That is totally my master plan. I give that secret out. That is totally my master plan. Really? I'm infusing all my rhymes, all my videos, even all my social media posts. Now, everything I put out, I am totally conscious, like a quality control of like at the factory of like, there's somebody on the assembly line who's just like, oh, wait, before that goes out. Sure
there we go. Yeah.
Yep. Everything I put out has that scoop, or is completely laced, or at the base of its ingredient list has this thing about betterment and positive thinking and engaging with your own mind science and equipping people with something so that they can feel themselves or heal themselves or equip themselves. However I can infuse that in every communication and interaction I have with the world. That is absolutely my master plan. Absolutely.
Fabulous. Well, that's wonderful to hear, and all power to you. I think that's fantastic. Emily, I can't thank you enough for coming on. Honestly, it's been brilliant listening to you.
Thank you. I hope we do it again.
Absolutely, we shall do. Yeah, we'll come in for like do round 2 or something like that.
Yeah,
it's fascinating. So down with that. Honestly, we could just carry on talking about this stuff. I love.
I bet every wall in your spot is something. I get a new set of art every time. I love it. You got the Keith Harrington today. Like, it's fire. I gotta step my back. I've been learning that too. I gotta step up my Zoom background now that I'm starting to do more Zooms and virtual.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Step that up.
Yes. Perfect. Thanks so much, and best of luck with everything. Let's definitely keep in touch. Thanks so much for coming on. We'll
thank you. I want to jump like Didi.
Yay.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the show, and I really hope that you enjoyed it and that you'll tune in for the next episode. In the meantime, it would be really awesome if you could rate and review the show, and also share it with any friends who you think might enjoy it.